information on Hodges' next step yet, since he pitched yesterday or after Shota pitches today?
Porter will pitch Tuesday in Iowa. So they'll throw a bullpen tomorrow, like a touch of field tomorrow, and they'll throw Tuesday in Iowa. Yeah. And then Shota has not pitched yet, so let's let him pitch.
Okay. How's Eli been progressing?
Eli's. I mean, he's in good shape. Obviously back in game action today, so good step. If there's no questions, that's perfectly acceptable.
He's going today, right?
Yeah, he'll pitch today. He's going to do another rehab start. Yeah.
Is it important to him to get innings or just up and downs or what's?
Yeah, I mean, I think he just has to get his arm in game shape, and he'll obviously do more today. But he needs mound time. He needs the conditions of a game. Just needs ramp up. He needs ramp up to protect health-wise in the future and everything.
The fact that he was kind of throwing all along, is that accelerated a little bit? Or?
I think the amount of downtime just out of game competition, you have to just follow certain steps because of that. He just missed too much time of game action.
We've talked a lot about especially with Pete with his walks and limited number of them. But you've got Kyle Tucker, who's one of the few guys who has more walks than strikeouts among the sluggers. And you've got a few really high strikeout guys like Dansby and Pete and Seiya. I don't know, in your what would be your is there any sort of ideal kind of lineup as far as or how that would work? Everybody's kind of successful in their own way, but I'm just thinking if you're analyzing how a lineup works best is how important it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, how important is walking? I think, look, you try to just get good offensive players. I think, we all, you can want what you want. You want everything, right? Everybody wants everything. But your guys are going to have strengths and they're going to have things they can improve on. But in the end, you want to get to good offensive players for the league. I think we have a bunch of those guys. I think the younger player has a better chance of kind of improving some of his weaknesses. I think that's normal to say that. But I don't know. You don't get to pick all those things as much as you'd like to. But I think in the end we're producing pretty good offense.
How can a guy like Tucker or any other of your veterans kind of lead by example, their approach kind of rub off on some of the younger guys? Is that something that can spread through a team?
Yeah, I mean it's all just experience, and I think when you're around different people and people that are really good at their craft, I think you take note of things, you try to apply them to your game, and then sometimes you say it's hard, but some of it is when Kyle lays off a pitch that's an inch outside, does that help Pete? I'm not sure.
Matt Shaw saw 17 pitches in 2 plate appearances.
He did
against Skeens
yesterday. Yeah.
By design.
No, it's foul balls. I mean, you're trying to square it up, and you hit a foul ball. And in the end, that's what when we talk about how do we get pitch counts up, they usually get up because of foul balls. And so sometimes I think the hitters would say sometimes there's the good foul ball, which is the pitcher throws a tough pitch and you're just fortunate to get a piece of it and you foul it off. And then there's the pitch that you had to hit and you hit a foul ball, and those you can see the hitter reactions on that. Against a guy like Skeens, it's just harder to square up. So you're going to see some foul balls. and he's pretty darn good at making you swing and miss too. So, the foul ball gets you another pitch and maybe a little better pitch to hit. So I mean, it's one of those many 2 at bats. I thought he had really good at bats. He probably, so it says 17. He probably felt like he had 2 or 3 to hit of those 17. That's hitting.
When you were a major league hitter, do you go in the cage and think I got to get better at fouling off those?
No. Nobody's trying. I mean, you're not trying to hit foul balls. You have to swing at the pitch. It's hard to make quality contact on a pitch that's on the edge of the strike zone. That's why when you see the home runs at night, they're generally in the middle of the strike zone.
What's it been like to watch Horton's relationship with his changeup kind of develop over these past 6 weeks or so?
Yeah, I mean, I think Cade. I mean, Cade's very clear-headed in kind of how he approaches everything. So I think as a starting pitcher, he's watching games. He's fully aware that you want weapons, you want options, you want choices, and that in itself kind of gives you some confidence to throw the pitch. I think having some early success with some things has been important for Cade, but he's earned that success. So it's. I think it's part of his repertoire now, and he'll continue to, get more and more comfortable with it, and he'll continue to try to improve on other things.
When you look at Nico's offensive profile, what do you think of his ability to kind of get what he can out of what he does well, whether it's high contact, situational hitting? Power's never really been his thing, but it seems like he finds other ways to work line to line and almost like do things to get towards the team win, not the individual. Well,
he has an elite skill. Like I think the contact is an elite skill, and that I think generally that skill, if you're really good at making contact, you're gonna hit the ball all over the field to be able to just manipulate the barrel to create contact. And it means he's dependent on the ball being in play, which, so that's why he can kind of run, feel like he runs hot and cold, but it's really just the ball in play. He gets, you see him getting rewarded more for kind of soft contact, but it's a function of the ball being in play. So those are all things that he does well, and it's part of who he is as a player.
With Boyd, when he was last outing and didn't have strikeouts and rely on this defense, as much as you talked about just him coming back healthy and what the expectations, what you hoped you'd get out of him, when he has an outing like that and still can work through, get you some innings, what do you see from him that maybe as he continues to go throughout the season that you didn't anticipate, you just like what you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I think his last outing was just a team that kind of decided to be really aggressive. Just made a decision to be really aggressive, kind of based on probably just him throwing a lot of, in a previous start or two, throwing a lot of first pitch strikes. So that's just kind of the nature of game to game, adjusting as a starter, not falling into patterns and things like that. So he'll, you continue to kind of just keep an eye on that, and we're always keeping an eye on that for our guys, and the players feel that generally faster than even us. But Matt's just continued to do a good job and mix up his looks, just be a good pitcher. I mean, he's got a repertoire that challenges hitters, and he'll continue to kind of be that guy, and he's been a real steady presence in the rotation.
As a pitcher, obviously you want to get ahead and throw a first pitch strike, so if there is a point where you need to, like you're describing, start mixing it up, what does that mean? Location? Or how do you, because you don't want to...
Yeah, no, I mean, it means... I think it means being able to throw off speed in the zone at times, first pitch. And that's, major league pitchers have to have the ability to do that. And Matthew certainly does. But it's also, quick outs lead to, deeper in the game. using our defense, being able to maybe expand, if a very aggressive team, expand the zone even on 0-0 and get a swing that's so there's all sorts of ways you can kind of take that, but at some point, if our percentages get to 80% first pitch heaters, like the other team is going to react to that.
So it's less about because you want to throw first pitch strikes. It's more what is the to keep mixing it up.
Yeah. I mean, there are players that you can expand. You can kind of treat 0-0 like 0-2 because they're swinging a lot, but in general, yeah.
Hey, Craig, can you explain what the hitting group has done well with Pete, even going back to last year? He made some changes with off-season plan in place. He didn't get buried the first month of the season. Just in terms of routine, setting routine, absorbing information, flushing taking each day as a separate event. What are your observations in the last couple of years with that?
Well, first is we talked about the thing we talked about last year was establishing consistent routines. That was kind of first, and I think I think everybody, but the hitting group, that was kind of something we established, just establish a very consistent routine. I think as the biggest difference you see kind of that's in the box is just he's more spread out. There's less of a leg kick. There's more rhythm, and that's created an ability to be on time more. And frankly, I think that's a function of just daily routine, kind of getting to a good place. And you're kind of trying little things all throughout that process. And then from a hitting perspective, I think the guys just don't forget the main thing, which is just who you are as a hitter, what you're good at, and kind of reinforcing that through the ups and downs of that results, can whiplash you with. And I think this John Maley probably is at the front of this with Pete, and he's done a wonderful job.
He was taking a couple grounders at third base a little while ago. Is that
Pete?
Is that in the cards for Pete?
Never know. Yeah, I'm not going to say no.
How many left-handed third basemen have you ever seen?
There's a guy for the White Sox that I remember.
Mike Squires.
There you go. Thank you. That's pretty good. You were there.
Yes, we were talking.
That's pretty good that I remember that, don't you think?
You know the last one was?
Don Mattingly?
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
He's on fire.
So I've thought about it.
He's got good range.
Yeah.